Hajime Kashimo and Ryomen Sukuna, a battle which seemed completely plausible in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. This is a fight that we are probably going to witness very soon in the series, but the entire concept of Hajime Kashimo is really intriguing, from his powers and abilities down to his entire personality. But he's seeking an opponent who is detrimental on a global scale, and that is the King of Curses, Ryomen Sukuna. What Kashimo seeks is to fight the very strongest. We noticed how much bloodlust he had since being introduced into the Culling Games, but he has his eyes set on the prize, and that would be against such an immense force, a force that is literally unstoppable. But before we go any further, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new and hit that notification bell to stay updated when latest uploads. This video will contain spoilers from the manga. Kashimo is someone who seems to only care about fighting the most powerful. We saw what he did to my boy Panda, but he displayed beyond imaginable abilities in his fight against Hikari. However, Ryomen Sukuna is on a totally different level to the other characters in Jujutsu Kaisen. Kashimo could have lost his life to Hikari, but the world of JJK is so intricate that one character's weakness is another character's advantage. So with that said, does Hajime Kashimo stand a chance against the King of Curses, Ryomen Sukuna? The history between Hajime Kashimo and Ryomen Sukuna seems a little odd due to the fact that neither of these two have met each other or ever had a confrontation. This is because Hajime Kashimo and Ryomen Sukuna both originate from two different periods in history. Hajime Kashimo was running rampant 400 years ago in the Edo period, which spanned from the early 1600s to the late 1800s, whereas Ryomen Sukuna was a walking calamity 1000 years ago during the Heian period. The Heian period would be noted down as the golden age of sorcerers, meaning it was easily the most powerful time in the Jujutsu Kaisen universe. But I think we'll need to learn a bit more behind Hajime Kashimo's past, since he is a fairly new character who was introduced to us in the series. So it would be in chapter 187, during the midst of Kashimo's battle against Hikari, that we would be pushed into a flashback concerning Hajime Kashimo for the very first time. This would take place during the Edo period, as we notice Kenjaku approaching a mysterious man surrounded by severed heads and limbs. This is when Kenjaku would ask the question to this mystery man, asking him if he's had fun, but it seems the man sitting on the tree wasn't satisfied and tells Kenjaku how he should have challenged him way back then, and by that I believe he means when he was much younger and in his prime. Kenjaku then offers this old man a potential opponent who is known to have the highest cursed energy output in history. But that is when this old man says it's already far too late for him, as he's coughing up blood and seems to be in his dying days. This old man then turns around and what appears is electricity surrounding him, asking Kenjaku who is the most powerful sorcerer that he knows. Kenjaku coldly replies that it is Sukuna and mentions how he is 600 years too late. This old man would be known as Hajime Kashimo, accepting Kenjaku's offer, and that is to be involved in his binding vow to resurrect hundreds of years later. We all understand that Kenjaku has been plotting away for the past 1000 years, but it's from here when Kashimo only wants to fight the very strongest, and that is against Sukuna. He even mentioned how he regrets not taking on Kenjaku, showing the capacity of his character. So this battle between Kashimo and Sukuna is inevitable, and I'm confident we will definitely see happening in the series. What makes it even more exciting is the fact that this is a battle 400 years in the making. However, Sukuna most likely has no clue who Kashimo is and couldn't care less. So what we could possibly witness is an extremely bloodthirsty Kashimo facing off against a 15-finger Sukuna who had just caused oblivion with his domain expansion in Shibuya and taking down an unstoppable Shikigami who we know as Mahoraga. It's pretty safe to say that currently in the manga, these two are pretty warmed up. As for Sukuna's origins, most of us already know. He was once a sorcerer who turned into a cursed spirit, but not just any cursed spirit, but the King of Curses. That's how powerful he was. What tops things off, he reached his peak 1000 years ago in the Heian period, which like I mentioned before, was known to be the golden age of sorcerers, a time in which Jujutsu was at its most powerful, and on top of the throne would be Ryomen Sukuna. He was so powerful at full strength that it took every single sorcerer during the golden age to merely seal him within 20 different cursed fingers, as they weren't able to completely exercise the presence of Ryomen Sukuna. So it's two different situations with both Kashimo and Sukuna. I guess you could even say Kashimo was a parallel to Sukuna of his time during the Edo period, but Sukuna had a much more dominant presence, so much so that even after 1000 years, every sorcerer seems to become paralyzed in fear just at the mention of his name, except Gojo of course. But regardless, Kashimo sought to fight the ones at the top, and proved that he is indeed the most powerful, whereas due to Sukuna's ruthless carnage, he was given the title as the most powerful and did not need to seek approval for it. Let's now understand the intricacies of both Kashimo and Sukuna's curse techniques and domain expansions. Since Akutami is still sort of holding back the abilities of both characters, we'll need to assess their techniques from the crumbs Akutami left us. So I'll start off with the mysterious Hajime Kashimo. We are first introduced to him in chapter 158, when Yuji and Megumi were convincing Hikari to join them in the Culling Games and ultimately save Satoru Gojo. From this point it would be 12 days since the Culling Games were commenced by Kenjaku, as a Kogani appears right before Yuji and Megumi, telling them of the new rule edition which was set out by Kashimo himself. In only 12 days, Kashimo was able to rack up 200 points, as sorcerers are worth 5 points and a non-sorcerer is worth 1 point. If we take this into account, he'd have easily defeated over 30 sorcerers already, depending on how many non-sorcerers he's killed. These are some insane numbers, as Kashimo would run riot in Tokyo Colony number 2, but it wouldn't be until his matchup against Kinji Hikari where we would finally get to see Kashimo's true powers and abilities. I won't be going through his fight with Hikari bit by bit, since I know that would take forever, but instead we'll pick out the moments in which Kashimo displayed his excellence in battle. So the first things we notice from Kashimo are his raw pace and ability to hurt Hikari with just his hand-to-hand combat alone. He is basically a master at martial arts and can constantly keep hitting you with the new moves each time. But even if we take it a step back, Kashimo's encounter with Panda, the amount of raw power that Kashimo has, he was able to overpower Panda's gorilla mode. Anyways, he's easily much more talented in the martial arts department when compared to Hikari, easily taking his hits on and countering with moves that we've never really seen before from a sorcerer. However, his durability is excellent, being able to withstand Hikari's brute strength and grow more in excitement at his opponent's strength. But what Kashimo acquires, which is different to any other character, is his electrified cursed energy. It makes it near impossible to avoid getting hit by Kashimo's attacks, since he can shock his opponent and follow up with an attack. This temporarily puts his opponent in a state of shock, granting him the advantage in battle. During his fight against Hikari, he even showed his lightning discharge ability, which allows him to freely separate the charges of his curse energy like electricity. By applying the positive charge to his target immediately, Kashimo can discharge the negative charge without losing any electricity to the ground. This results in a powerful lightning strike that rends the air and is guaranteed to hit without the need for a domain expansion. After discharging this attack, Kashimo needs time to recharge before he can fire it again. In a sense, by utilizing that ability without the need of a domain expansion makes him sort of similar to the likes of Sukuna and Megumi. To top off Kashimo's limited array of techniques would be his own Nioi staff. This allows him to conduct the electrical properties of his cursed energy, making it a suitable weapon for close combat. Hajime generally uses pole arm attacks in combination with normal taijutsu. As for Kashimo's curse technique, it is still unknown, because throughout his altercation with Hikari, he refused to use it since he can only use it a single time and he wants to use it against Sukuna. So his entire battle with Hikari, he solely relied on his raw abilities, accompanied with the manipulation of his own electrified curse energy. As for Kashimo's curse technique, this is something we'll theorize about later in the video. Anywho, let's quickly run through Sukuna's arsenal before putting these two monsters against each other. Well, for the King of Curses, even though we've seen him from the beginning of the series, his techniques are also limited to what Akutami has shown us, meaning Sukuna and Kashimo are both in a similar situation where we haven't really seen the entire kitchen sink being put out in a battle. When it comes down to speed, strength, durability, reflexes and even battle intellect, Sukuna tops the entire class. And for me, a 15-finger Sukuna is unstoppable. Since Sukuna has evolved into a cursed spirit, cursed energy comes into him like breathing air. So in that sense, he is in a similar situation as Gojo, where the cursed energy for him seems limitless. Sukuna had displayed to us his amazing capacity in using reverse curse technique early on in the series. This is when he had regenerated Yuji's arm with little to no effort against the finger bearer, keeping in mind he was only at the strength of 2 cursed fingers. Although we've not seen much from him, we were left off with 2 specific techniques, the first one being Dismantle, which grants him the ability to slash any inanimate object and can be used on a cursed spirit to a degree. Next is Sukuna's Cleave, which gives leeway to destroy anything infused with cursed energy in just a single strike. We also noticed during the Shibuya incident arc was Sukuna's unknown flame ability, using a fiery bow and arrow to kill Jogo in a single strike, and then displaying it again with Mahoraga. The power which this flame technique acquires is immense, and Sukuna was using it like child's play. But the biggest strength to Sukuna, which we got to understand more, is his domain expansion Malevolent Shrine. His domain is easily one of the strongest. He needs no barrier to engulf people into his domain, but instead chooses an area of 200 meters from where he is standing to cause absolute chaos and turn everything into dust. Both his dismantle and cleave abilities are used together to obliterate anything moving or not moving inside of the 200-meter radius. The damage was incomparable when used in the Shibuya incident arc. So as far as abilities and techniques go, Sukuna easily wins this and has the upper hand in this battle. Let's now finally hypothesize what could possibly happen when Kashimo finally gets his wish and battles against the King of Curses. So how exactly could this battle between the pair pan out? From what we've discovered is that Sukuna is most likely unaware that a guy from the Edo period is coming for his head, and even if Sukuna did know, I don't think he would care at all. With that being said, I believe if Kashimo were to find Yuji and pounce at him, Sukuna would even bother coming out to control him. When you think of the circumstances, it sort of aligns itself. Hanakurusu stated that Sukuna must be killed in order for her to save Satoru Gojo, and knowing Yuji, he would gladly take the fall since he's convinced himself that he is just a mere cog in the system. Yuji always knew that he would need to be executed someday, so if Kashimo were to appear before him, it'd be the perfect opportunity for him to die and have Hanakurusu assist the team to free Gojo from the prison realm. At first, Kashimo will attack Yuji with a flurry of martial arts moves, however Yuji will not fight back whatsoever. Like I said, realizing this is the perfect time for him to die, Yuji will take a beating, leaving Kashimo heavily frustrated at the fact that Sukuna is not taking control. This will eventually leave Yuji on the brink of death, already accepting his fate, and from here I think Sukuna will understand what Yuji plans on doing. It will then become a situation very similar to when Yuji died in the beginning of the series and talking to Sukuna inside of his innate domain. Sukuna could potentially spill the beans from there on out about who he really is, but that's just hopeful thinking. But I reckon throughout Yuji's beatdown, Sukuna wouldn't really care to bother intervening. But through this truth which Sukuna could have possibly given him, it would sort of give Yuji a bit of motivation to finally fight back against Kashimo, but the frustration of Kashimo not being able to go toe to toe with Sukuna will only force him to unleash his single curse technique which he has been saving up for 400 years. In a similar way to how Geto and Yuta had their final stand, Yuji will be in the same position, but because Yuji is on a suicide mission, he intends to force Sukuna to control him right before Kashimo hits him with his curse technique. Now what we understand about Kashimo's curse technique is that it can only be used once, so this could fall on the idea that it may be a fusion of his curse technique and domain expansion in one, just like Hikari's, or it could just be a single swoop attack like Geto's Uzumaki technique, but either way it can only be used once. So with Yuji on the brink of death and Sukuna suddenly taking over right before Kashimo's curse technique lands on him, there will be a massive impact. Since I believe Sukuna would be late to the party, this would leave half of Yuji's body severed, just like Geto's in Jujutsu Kaisen 0, but this time with Sukuna in control. With Kashimo finally having lured out Sukuna, he would be at complete shock at how Sukuna effortlessly repairs the entire body with reverse curse technique. Kashimo is someone who is greedy for power, but once he witnesses Sukuna, he would become excited with fear. So with that kind of build up, how could this battle turn out? So let's say Kashimo did indeed waste his single curse technique trying to lure out Sukuna. After that it would become a Sukuna vs Jogo all over again, complete and utter domination from Sukuna. Although Kashimo is talented when it comes down to hand-to-hand combat and being able to manipulate his cursed energy, a one-on-one between Kashimo and Sukuna is unfair. From what we understand about their abilities right now, Sukuna absolutely washes Kashimo, but let's take this battle into another direction. What if instead of Kashimo wasting his curse technique on Yuji and being able to lure out Sukuna successfully, how could this battle play out? This all depends on how powerful Kashimo's curse technique is. Sukuna is able to eat down any technique put in his path. His immense speed and reflexes make it ever so difficult to put a single scratch on him. Even the mighty special rage Jogo couldn't land a hit on a 15-finger Sukuna. Unless Kashimo's curse technique is just as powerful as Mahoraga in itself, then he may be able to stand his ground for a while against the King of Curses. I mean, if Kashimo is capable of fending off a literal immortal Hikari for around 4 minutes, then I do believe Kashimo could get his chance to go head to head with Sukuna. But the only problem is I certainly believe when it comes down to speed and power, Sukuna makes Kashimo look like a child. If Kashimo were to find himself in a one-on-one battle against Sukuna, just like he did with Hikari, he'll definitely lose, and Sukuna is a ruthless monster who will indeed kill Kashimo with no remorse. But the build up to this fight is something I certainly believe in, Yuji wanting to get himself killed against Kashimo so that Hanakurusu would accept the mission of saving Gojo, but from there on it all depends on how powerful this curse technique of Kashimo's is. If it is on the level of Maharaga, then it could do some damage to the King of Curses, but it definitely won't kill him. So with that said, even if Kashimo unleashes this curse technique of his, it could possibly do some damage, but it will not kill Sukuna, giving Sukuna the chance to school Kashimo and show him the difference between a mere sorcerer seeking for power against a person who loads for calamities. So for me, Sukuna will end up killing Kashimo unless he finds something interesting in him like he did with Megumi. Then Kashimo has some sort of chance of survival. Anyways, with all that said and done, I do believe something similar of Yuji putting himself in a suicidal position against Kashimo would make sense. But as for how this battle would turn out, we all know the obvious answer. But I'd really like to get your guys' opinion on Kashimo's curse technique and what it could be, since that is the deciding factor in his battle against Sukuna. Be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. As always, like this video and subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you guys in the next one.